flight crew this afternoon is Captain Darren Kyle and First Officer Inia Damon. I'm Ray, and we have Christine. Our flight time tonight to the Chathams is 1 hour and 55 minutes. So like, we'll sit back and relax and enjoy this journey to the island with us.
I'm the chief pilot, amongst other things, for Air Chathams. Originally it was a 2-year stint. I'm 18 years into that now. I felt at home pretty much straight away, loved the place. I just thought I'd enjoy the challenge of living out here. Aviation is probably more important in the Chathams than it is in a lot of places because of the remoteness. It really is your only option in the case of an emergency, or if they need to go and see loved ones in a hurry or anything like that. From the age of 5, I thought I was going to be a pilot. I was really interested in flying right from then. When I was a kid on the farm, we were right on the extended flight path for the airport. Planes were always flying over and I was always racing outside to look at them. I'm in charge of most of the flight training involved in Air Chathams. Under the civil aviation rules, it's a requirement that you use flight simulators for training because of safety. Obviously, you can do a lot of manoeuvres in the simulator that if you tried to attempt in the airplane would be quite dangerous. Okay, so I'll flame that engine out. Well, this simulator was designed back in the 50s for the Convair 580. If that light is on, it's telling us that this pump has failed. There are only 2 of them operational anywhere in the world. One was in Canada, and this one, originally this one was in Alaska. If you have a look at the serial number on the back of this one, its serial number is 1. It takes up probably the size of a house. Pretty much it's a 1950s computer. It's all driven by valves, remember the old valve radio days, and mechanical servos. So it's a very electromechanical machine, a bit like a 1950s telephone exchange in a lot of respects. I enjoy it because I had a background in radio and electronics. Before I became a pilot, it's a bit of a hobby sideline for me. It was built in the days where things were built to be fixed. You can actually get in there and fix most things. We end up getting most of the people from the South Pacific coming down here to train on it. It's coming up to 60 years old. A lot of the old components are just sort of drying out, breaking down, and the valves we can still get new, normally from Russia, funnily enough. They're still making them there. It's a neat machine to work on. It has got a bit of a personality. It can be cantankerous. The guy that used to run it used to call it Christine, after that movie Christine, the car that had a mind of its own. Yeah, I don't use Christine, I use another word, but it throws all sorts of weird and wonderful faults at you until it gets warmed up and then it just hums. Yeah, it's neat, it's different.
I'm the owner of Waitangi Seafoods. It's a small fish factory, operates out of Tione. Born and bred on the Chatham Islands. Went to school, high school in Christchurch, went to St Bede's actually, 3 years. Coming back here, obviously, you can either go farming or fishing. For me, farming and sheep, yeah, I couldn't quite get into that. Watching the shearers work, that looked like hard work, so I decided to go deckhanding, then ended up in a dive suit, doing a bit of diving myself, and decided that I should process my own fish rather than just drop it off to the factories that were operating here.
He's pretty cruisy, does a lot of work for himself really. Shouldn't be diving, but he enjoys it, so he just does it all the time. He likes being under the water, he says it's relaxing.
Diving here and at 52, I can see the size of the fish that we used to process and see the size of the fish that we are processing now, and I can tell that we're not in good stead. And we have to really start looking to ourselves. Fish is pretty much 70% of income for Chathams. So it's frightening if we're not doing something about it. We're in big trouble. I have to do this. See, I've got a friend in Hawke's Bay. He really hates kinners. You're right. So I have to hit one for all those people who can't get them. I've eaten some fish in some different places in the last couple of years. I've been to China 3 times and found that very interesting. Great. Good stuff. But yeah, no, we've got the best. There's no 2 ways about that. This is my 6-year-old son. His name is Artiki. I'd like to leave something for my kids and for other people's kids as well, and that's doing something with the fishery, rebuilding, sustainability, aquaculture. That's my game at present. Yeah, no, just enjoying life as well. It's the future, believe it or not. That's right, mean, right. Living here has been a dream, really. I mean, you can still catch some of the past here. The kids can still go out and get a bucket of powers, you know, in the bare feet. Yeah, those things are still here.
I live in Owinga. I was born here on the Chatham Islands. I left the island when I was 5. I came back for a brief visit with my dad when I was 18. I loved the place that much, I wanted to come back and live. That was where I was going to be. I was going to come back and do my art. Went back out to New Zealand and started a career in the fishing industry off island. I spent 10 years trying to get back here. Came back for the millennium and stayed. People come here to the island and they either love it or hate it. Ones that love it end up staying for a very long time. And ones that don't necessarily love it so much, sort of quite, try to leave quite quickly. Yeah, it's not an easy place to live. Just with the environment, yeah, it's quite wind-blown here. You live with mud in the winter and you live with dust in the summer. Yeah, we are in the elements. It can drag you down. Especially being a woman, it's really hard to look nice and feel nice when there's mud all over the bottom of your pants or your skirt. I try to be feminine, try to keep human, but then too, we do have our nice days. Sometimes it's quite tropical. It's the place that just gets to you, and you just love it. Or hate it, yeah. I always liked sort of colouring in and drawing and things, but I went to work out my subjects for the school C year. My art teacher said to me, "Don't you dare take art, you're absolutely hopeless." Because of my pig-headedness, I took art because I didn't like him and I wanted to annoy him for a whole year of being a hopeless artist. When someone sort of tells me, no, I can't do something, and then it's like, well, yes, I can. You can do anything you want if you set your mind to it. That sort of carried on right through my life with the fishing as well. It was quite, macho. There were other women fishing, but it was still very new women on the boats. You had to have an element of toughness. I met my partner, Phil. We used to play together when we were little kids. His family left the island and my family left the island. He came back and we met up again. When I came home, I drew seabirds, the mollymawk and the albatross, because I saw a lot of them out at sea when I was fishing. And I affiliated myself with them because I was watching them all day. The bird has koru patterns on its wings that represent the generations that live here. The expression on the mollymawk as well is the determination to get home and be home. I always knew I'd come home, yeah. My friends were really shocked that I was having children, yeah. I didn't really like children. They're the best thing that's ever happened to me, but they're balls of energy. They're adorable, they're really lovely. We spend a lot of time together and we're doing things all the time. We're always down the beach. They're sort of the talk of the island. Phoenix and Delta and their little mates, Gabriel and Cassidy, are always swimming down the beach. It doesn't matter if it's the middle of winter, and if it's blowing 40 knots southwest, they're always swimming. We visit New Zealand maybe once a year. We all love visiting the place, but always love coming home. I really just want to be here with my family and do my art. That's the thing. I'm in the best place.
The best thing about living here is not a lot of people. Peaceful. You've got freedom, you've got fishing. I like the ocean too, surrounded by the ocean. Every day's a different day on the Chathams, and yeah, and it depends on the weather as to what they're having. Lunch, fishermen come in for fish, farmers come for steak. It's ridiculous. I'm dying to wait till the All Black selection. George might get in. We hope so. I do a lot of catering for people to take away. See you, Claudie. Like for afternoon teas, morning teas. Air Chathams do the sandwiches for their flights every day, for the passengers both ways. Cheese and pineapple, egg and lettuce, which is the favourite of all, and ham and tomato. I usually have chicken, but I've run out of chicken. I have to wait for the ship to come. So we're used to going without, so you just make do. All the coffee comes from Wellington, Cafe Lafari. Visitors ask for it. I don't get too fancy, just the normal cappuccino, flat white. I haven't been trained in that barista thing, and it's quite nice having a coffee machine like this because you can take it home for Easter. $7.40, please, Gina. Ta. So what are you culling, gorse or?
No, Cotonia.
Brush cutting.
Yeah. Right, we'll see you later.
OK, mate. $11.60, please, Jace. You're taking a risk with Kerry and Jenna, aren't you?
Tell you.
Got some earmuffs?
Earmuffs, yeah. I might just miss.
Just start the chase or leave it idling.
Cool, thank you.
See ya.
See you later.
See ya, Jace. You're a brave boy. Willie Fleming used to come in here and he would make up this burger because he didn't want anything green. He wanted pork riblet, 2 lots of bacon, a double lot of cheese and a double lot of onions. So that was called a Willie burger. So it's a very popular burger. Very popular. Goes on like that. 1 Willie burger. January of 1973, I came to live. Yeah, it's been a wee while. Nearly 40 years. I'm still a visitor. Oh, it's just the best.
I've come here from South Westland, Whangaroa. A lot of people think that was the back of beyond. Chatham Islands came up as a job. Yeah, I was elated. It was a job I suppose I really wanted to get and managed to get it. I'm the sole charge policeman on the Chatham Islands, coming up 9 months through. I've come here because I think this would have to be the ultimate one-man station for the police. It's so far away. You don't have access to certain things out here that you normally have in New Zealand. The main one being is someone else in the blue uniform. Here on the island, when you're totally isolated, you're it. Sort of like that in a way. You know, you're it. I thought this would be the ultimate test, really, to come out here and try it out. Do a bit of everything. And it's not just police work we do here, but we've got justice, Department of Internal Affairs, bit of corrections work, land transport, immigration, customs, births, deaths and marriages. We can marry people off because we don't have a marriage celebrant here at the moment. Hopefully we will do soon. And you want to help as best you can. This is Chatham Islands Court. Every 3 months we get a judge, prosecutor and a duty solicitor, a registrar. Sometimes there seems like more court staff in here than actual people in trouble. Yeah, it's a unique situation. The thing is your family gets involved as well. Rachel, my partner, is a lot more involved now in my job, taking phone calls or talking to people at the front door. She got interviewed as well, and she got interviewed more than me, actually. As a police family, you'll quickly get found out if there was something wrong with your relationship out here, I'd say. So luckily we're doing all right. We are certainly a police family out here. This is Rachel's garden. I hauled all the dirt, but she's growing in it.
I don't know about hauling the dirt either.
Veggies can be expensive here.
Don't come out, little baby.
Rachel's growing some good veggies for tea now. How's Lemmy today? I've got a big paddock out the back for sheep and chickens. Give Lemmy a pet? Oh, yeah. Who are your friends in here?
Candy Floss.
Candy Floss. Candy Floss the sheep.
Yeah.
Yeah? Yeah, and the chickens? You like the chickens? Being here for the kids at their age, 6 and 3, it's a great experience for them. I was living on an island when I was their age. Any one-man station, especially where the station's connected to the house, I have to be very careful in that regard. Certainly weighs in the back of your mind when your family's right there involved. If I have to take someone back to the cells, I'll most probably be passing by my kids bouncing around on the trampoline while I'm dealing with my lockup, taking them back there. And if it's a nasty one with all the abuse and all that, there's not much I can do. We've got 2 cells and a search and rescue room and radios in here. Generally try not to put anyone in the cells because you've got to babysit the person that's in here till they're released or taken back to New Zealand under escort. As with any cell block, they're never comfortable. They say there's ghosts in these ones. There is a bit of a ghostish noise that comes out of this place. I wouldn't want to be here by myself. There it is there. I am on call all the time, 24/7. You got days off in your roster, but it always works out that someone's going to ring up or something's going to happen. There is still crime here. We have drugs, we have domestics, we have things stolen and places burgled. Yeah, they get policed. The island is bigger than what most people think. It's quite large. It actually takes a while to drive around. People think when they come here it's quite a small island, but it's not. There are no warnings with drink driving, and there shouldn't be.
Hello mate, how are you tonight?
When you're by yourself, you need to think differently. And there's no quick getting on the radio to find someone to come and help you if you do get into trouble.
No, you're all good. You have a good night.
So that's always in the back of your mind. You don't have any backup. If I ever got into trouble, I'll be relying on whoever drives past to stop and lend a hand, if there's someone driving past, that is. Yeah, well, I thought it would be good to have a disco under the blue light banner, which is the police youth service, I suppose. We wanted to have the kids have a dance, basically, Halloween theme. So, yeah, the hall's decked out with balloons and about 50 kids there. I remember back from my childhood going to blue light discos. And they had a good time, parents had a good time. I had a good time. Yeah, I'm sure we'll do that again. I rely on my community. It'll be the same in any small station. More so in the small station where you're the only policeman. And I've got people like that here now I can rely on. And the longer I'm here, the more people I'll get to know. Enjoying it at the moment. Some good people here. We'll hold in our memories, I suppose, when it's time to go back to New Zealand. Family's enjoying it. I'd say at the end of our term here, Rachel won't want to leave. And I'm sure when we do leave, there'll be a tear in our eye when it's time to go back to NZ. Yeah.
My favourite flying would be actually doing the Pitt Island run, flying between Chatham Island and Pitt. Nice short sectors, biggest hassle. That takes you longer to do the paperwork than it actually does to do the flying, but the flying is really good, hands-on, neat scenery. Anybody, I think, could really become a Chatham Islander if they are prepared to become involved in the community out here. Put up with the isolation and yeah, make do with what they got. Couldn't think of a better place to live myself.
Pitt Island has a really small community. I think there's about 36 or 37 people normally living here. I've lived on Pitt Island for just over 4 years now. Winning the job here was like winning lotto. I just couldn't believe the opportunities that it was going to bring and the adventure for the family coming to the most isolated school in all of New Zealand. Oliver reached out with his paw and he patted it very carefully just to see what would happen.
There are 7 people at Pitt Island School. Tane, Douglas, Ruben, Medi, Mark. I am the youngest. I am 5. Stella and me.
3 of them are mine. I have 7-year-old twins and an 11-year-old girl.
Mr. Graydon's my teacher here. He's my dad as well. Yeah, and it's real cool.
Katrina and I have 6 children who range from 15 down to a newborn baby. And we really do love it here. It's so different from the mainland and mainland schools. I like that I can spend so much time with my own children and want to do that intentionally. We had a couple of people who identify new plant species from Wellington, and they said that the Chatham Island toi-toi, from memory it was 146 plants left, and we had one of them up our driveway at school. I went with the children and we gathered up the seeds from it and managed to get 70 new Chatham Island toi-toi plants. It's a lovely thing to be able to go out with the children and do some planting out some afternoons. Living in an environment like this certainly has its practical challenges. There's no shop here at all. We get our food supplies from the ships from Timaru. They come to Pitt Island maybe every 2 or 3 months. So we tend to buy about 6 months' worth of groceries at a time. If we run out of peanut butter or something like that, then the kids just have to do without peanut butter until the ship comes with more supplies. You just can't get it. There's no mains power here. Every morning I have to start the diesel generators. That's when we have the heaters and things on at school. Just after lunch we turn them off and have inverter batteries. We can still have power as long as it's only light usage.
Some people here do have 24-hour power like school, except we don't.
A number of houses on the island, they just have no electricity sort of during the day.
We only normally have it at the night. Around about 6 o'clock we turn it on.
You're surprised with what you can do without.
We do writing, silent reading, music in the afternoon. My favourite subject is maths.
Pitt Island School have won the New Zealand Maths Challenge. Several of our children have been the top students in the World Maths Day. We're right up there beating a lot of the mainland schools.
Douglas and Archie probably being the best in the school, except from Thomas, who used to be here, but he's went to high school.
When students finish Year 8 here, they usually go to boarding schools on the mainland. Often they find that difficult, but it's just necessary. There's no high school here. I've had 2 of my own children leave to go to high school since we've been here. It's a hard thing. It has some sadness to it for myself as a father. Students find it quite daunting. But I guess that's all they have anticipated for all of their life. When they turn 12, they'll leave and go to boarding school.
I might go to Christchurch Boys, and I'll probably live with my auntie and go to Oxford area school.
That's what I've been building them up for, is preparing them, as have the community, to do well and to see the world. My daughter went to boarding school and there was 32 people in her class. You know, that's about our whole entire population on the island. The Ministry of Education fly them home each holidays. Always just wonderful to see them back and yes, see them growing so much during the term. Yes, certainly they've got some interesting stories to tell. Pitt Island, it's certainly a very different sort of place to live. A lot of my friends go, what are you thinking, taking your children to an island where there's no shop? But yeah, the adventure of the island, experiences that they've had, I think that they'll be with them for all of their life. They're so privileged to be here. I've enjoyed it immensely.
Well done.
When people come to live here, they tend to stay, and the farms are handed on from generation to generation. The first white settler here was Friedrich Hunt. Friedrich Hunt's descendants still live here, the Gregory-Hunts.
Friedrich Hunt came here in 1843. Our children would be the 7th generation from Friedrich Hunt. My husband Bill is where the connection comes from. I grew up in South Canterbury, where I met my husband's youngest sister, and we became friends, and she invited me back to Pitt Island for a holiday and met up with Bill. We married, and 51 years later, I'm still here. We've been farming most of those years. Unfortunately, Bill had a stroke in 1991. So that changed everything for our whole family. Bill and I have 11 children, 6 daughters and 5 sons, 23 or 24 grandchildren, 23 or 4, probably we've lost count a little bit, and 3 great-grandchildren. And we were at James's wedding. Bernard, our youngest child, is looking after the farm with me, and I like to take part in that if I can, because it's the land I have always loved. I feel very privileged to be living in such a place. It's a special place. I've always been very much part of the land and thoroughly loved having anything to do with it. You know, land doesn't go up for sale. It's passed down from generation to generation, which is wonderful. Originally, of course, having a big family, I was mostly involved in running my house. It didn't bother me having 11 children. I just went up another gear when another baby came along. I don't think it was too big a problem. It was busy, but I'm kind of a person that likes to be busy. Yeah, no, I was very organised. You learnt to order food supplies for, say, 4 or 5 months at a time or longer. We only got our stores very irregularly. I make my own bread. I make pickle out of my vegetable garden. I still do that. And you just get into the habit of it. Our children were of that generation where they went outside, they built panga huts, they chased wild sheep out the back, they climbed trees, they probably did lots of things I didn't actually know they were doing. But living in a place like this, the island was your playground, the whole island. You could go anywhere you liked if you wanted to.
It's so hot. Oh, look at Bernard.
By the time Bernard and the younger ones were born, some of them were at boarding school. So I don't really know how many we actually had at a time, to be honest. I guess there were always 7 or 8 of us. Of course, we'd get together when the kids came home from school. The young people growing up need to go away. It's lovely to be in a family community, but you need to develop socially in the big wide world as well, because we do live in a very tiny world here. Not everybody could live here, but it suits me wonderfully. And now that my children have grown up and gone, I have more time and opportunity to get out and enjoy just being around on the land. Simple things make me happy. To me, I've got everything I require around about me. I wasn't born here, but after 51 years, I'm very passionate about the place. I absolutely love it. Perhaps the people that were born here have a little bit more footage in the ground than me, I don't know, but I certainly would like to think I'm a true blue Pitt Islander.
I've been back here since 2000. Previous to that, I was here as a child and then left to go to New Zealand. Unfortunately, it was many, many years, but started to come back more and more, and my heart's always been here anyway. I consider that I'm one of the kaitiaki of our culture, Moriori culture. Probably 500 to 700 years ago, our people established a covenant of peace, and we endeavour to maintain those values today. My father used to talk to us about being Moriori. I remember my mother saying to him, "Why are you filling those children's heads with rubbish?" Because she could see no future in encouraging anything to do with the culture. But obviously it was ingrained deep enough in me. As a child, she thought she was the only Moriori in the world, and she was called a dirty Moriori. Therefore, she didn't want us to be associated.
Hapupu, which is this side, the southern side of Kaingaroa, is one of the last remaining stands of kopi trees, carved kopi trees. They were first introduced here by Moriori when they first arrived. We call them rako momiri, which is memories in wood. That's a rough translation, very rough. This, to me, is the equivalent to a cathedral. It's very sacred, and these areas were sacred and are still sacred to us. This is where our people gathered, and when you pass from this world into the next world, your image and things that you were noted for were beaten into the tree, and the bark was indented, and your image or what you were known for, sometimes your status, was impressed in the bark, and they were treated as living entities. and to me they still are living entities. We're guesstimating they're between 350, 450 years old, these ones. I see joy, I see happiness, I see ancient wisdoms and things that I'd like to travel back in a time machine and observe. Yes, I see joy in people that were totally at one with their surroundings. I feel, first, I'm a Moriori, and secondly, I'm a Chatham Islander. And to be both of those things is a privilege, and it's also a responsibility.
I grew up on the north end of the island and went to school from up there. Had to walk to school there for a while too, because the old bus couldn't get up there. Their roads were that rough. Born and bred here. Yeah, born and bred. I spent about 10 years in New Zealand shearing for a while. You know, it's like anywhere, wherever you grow up, I suppose you can always go back to it. Just sort of like come home. Get a bit older than that, it's sort of like quieter and it's a lot more easier going and everything, yeah. More my style now. There's normally about 3 of us most of the time, travel around together. Gazza, he's our top shearer.
I first learned to shear when I was 11. My dad showed me the first steps, and I used to help shear his sheep on his farm. And then I went away to high school to Palmerston North, and when I did come back when I was 15 to 16, Johnny Rotten's dad, he gave me my first break, shearing, yeah. I've known Johnny 40 years, easy. He's probably booted my backside when I was a tiny bugger.
These here are Romney. Some of the better sheep to shear, actually, are Romney. More placid. You know, they'll sit there for you. Gaz's boy, Joss, he's only just come on board this year in January. He started off, and he's going pretty good, though.
Pretty proud of him. He's only been shearing 8 months.
Johnny Rotten was the first person that ever gave me a chance on a handpiece, apart from my old man. I seem to have got the knack of it straight away. Only got shown one sheep and it was away since then. Sometimes it's pretty hard going, but we still get it done.
Here with our younger shearers, like we've got young Kerry, trying to get them going, you know, just us in the shed like Gazza and I. Joss might take off to New Zealand and get in those big gangs and get a lot more experience. It's like any job, the more you do it, the better you get.
There's only about 30 or 40,000 sheep on the island, so it's basically a part-time job. So you're probably going to have to find other ways of making money.
New Zealand especially, they've perfected it that much. You know, it probably takes about sort of like 5 years to get up there with the hot boys and that there. You can belt do 300 a day, man. All the fast days are over for me. That's all those young fellas down there. They're the gun boys now.
I'll probably stay here for another year, then head out, see what happens from there.
And with a bit of luck, I'll hope Joss will come back at the end here, because that's what Gaz has done.
That's sort of a pretty good sort of a way of life here. It's home. My dad's family came here in the 1800s. It's German missionaries. We've sort of been here ever since.
It's pretty cruisy, and you can do whatever you want, basically.
Pretty good life, you know. You don't have to buy a $100 mutton. You can go and get one out of the paddock. Out of your own paddock.
Definitely takes a certain kind of person to live down here.
This is the first touch game of the season. I've came from Kaingaroa for the game, and my mum, my dad and my brother are playing, and people from Kaingaroa, our team. But most of them are lazy, but my dad isn't, because we were having a touch practice on Wednesday, and Fabian and Regan were hiding under Mahara's table. I don't know, they just don't want to play touch. Oh no, yeah. My dad said if they don't do it, he'll boot their butts. Because last year everyone had a ball. But I'm not actually into rugby.
first came here in 1973. My husband came for work and told me he'd bring me here for 1 year, and I'm still here today, 39 years. I love the people and I like the Chathams itself, the rawness. I love the ocean. I love looking at the ocean. I've met the odd city person that reckons they could survive here. But yeah, I mean, there's no shops. And you've got to be into this type of lifestyle to be able to live here. Tonight we are having our seafood buffet at our Sports and Social Club. All the community is involved. Each one has their specialty dish. I am cooking mutton birds. My husband and I go south every year. We bring quite a few of our buckets of mutton birds back here to contribute. Tonight we have about 51 tourists. Everybody's happy to give of their time. Shorty, the local school teacher's husband, will be smoking moki. Sally Mewson is making smoked fish pie. Local dishes, marinated blue cod, curried crayfish, pawa and egg pie, mutton birds of course. There'll be some roast mutton from the local farm. Brings our whole community together. It's a very close-knit community. I am looking forward to a good night.
I was born in New Brighton, arrived in the Chatham Islands for a bit of a look, making crayfish pots up for a start. The crayfish boom started in the Chathams in the 1960s. But anyway, we made a lot of money diving for pawas and crayfish. There's plenty of them around, 55, 60 boats in Kaingaroa, which is hard to imagine today. We've got 7 fishing boats out there. In the boom days, there was boats banging into one another all night and up the beaches. But there was always plenty of activity in the boom days of crayfish here. I bought this farm a few years later. My great-grandfather got shipwrecked here in 1860. My grandfather had the Air Chathams hotel for about 45 years, but my mother had never been here, so I was really come back here for a look, and yeah, sort of stayed ever since. The Chatham Islands is unique because it's the first place to see the sunrise, and it's the year 2000, or coming up to the year 2000. Anyway, we decided to get some money printed. We got permission from the Reserve Bank. The idea was that it's businesses around the island, someone comes in and you give them change in Chatham Island currency. So all these notes are sort of made to show a bit of the history of the island, and you know, people hopefully take them as souvenirs. Yeah, it came up quite good. I think we turned over about $35,000 in the first 12 months, and everybody got a share in the profits. Yeah, it was a bit of a laugh. On the last lot, we put an $8 note in there. People want to collect oddball notes. They're worth about $120 US. Now in America, they're flogging them off. And of course, we got the old, on the $15 note, we got the old Sunderland that crashed here years ago. Ended up here anyway, we're on the farm, so that's part of the history of the island as well.
I've lived in the Chathams now for 6 years. I live on Jim Wilson's farm. When we first came to the Chathams, we came for 6 months, and yeah, there's a lot of people in that situation that have come to the Chathams for 6 months and are still here 30 years later. We do enjoy it. We've got 4 children, and they can roam all over the place with their bikes and animals, and they have a lot of freedom, and they get to have a farm childhood. I contract to Air Chathams for 10 days a month. I fly for Air Chathams. The rest of the time I donate my time to what we're doing here with the Aviation Museum. This plane belonged to the Royal New Zealand Air Force. It was a flying boat. The Sunderlands were used during the war to hunt submarines and drop depth charges. That was what it was designed to do. Our Air Force got 16 of them after the war. And they used to operate these Sunderlands to the Chathams carrying passengers. They didn't have runways back then, so they used to use the flying boats. And especially like in the Chathams, it was a great aeroplane because it easily landed in the lake. And this particular one, in November 1959, it hit a rock when it was taxiing out, which damaged the hull. The Air Force deemed it to be uneconomic to repair it, and it was gifted to the Chatham Island people on the proviso that it could be removed from the lagoon. Some people called the Wisners, who used to live here prior to the Mewsons, They were engineers, quite clever engineers from all accounts, and they were the ones that were clever enough to disassemble it, cut it up, and they brought it back to their farm, which is where we are now, and they just used to inherit things, take them to pieces, including the aeroplane, and use whatever they could to keep different parts of machinery going. The components were used for all different things. They were used for repairing tractors, for building sheds. Even the cockpit section was a greenhouse at one stage. The rear fuselage was a shed. It was all lying in the trees, and it was all over the farm, all overgrown with weeds. Pulled them all out, cleaned them up, and then put them together so that it's one aeroplane again. I think the Sunderland's not a particularly attractive aeroplane. I think it's pretty ugly. But as time goes on, as we work on it more and more, you sort of start to enjoy it a bit. But for me, the thing about the Sunderland that's interesting is the stories behind it. It's listening to people's stories, and we've spoken to different people on the Chathams to get their memories of what it was like flying in the flying boat. Basically, the idea is to use the fuselage as a gallery, and that'll be the place where we display all the stories. Any young Chatham Island kids coming through can read about what it was like for Grandad or Grandma and realise what a different world it was. What it meant back in the 60s and the 50s when air transport was fairly new and it wasn't that common. And also I got interested in aeroplanes when I was very young due to the fact that we went to museums and we saw them. So if there's one or two kids that get excited about aeroplanes or think about a career in aviation, then that would have been a great thing too. We've found it great. Our children are accepted here, and we've been accepted here too. I thoroughly enjoy living in this place. There's a great bunch of people, and it's a great community.
Every Saturday night in the summer, come out for good feed and that, eh? Crayfish and powers and kinners, and throw on a bit of a do for people and that.
All our food tonight is prepared by the community themselves, so it's all a community effort around here. Just enjoy your night tonight. Thank you.
It's pure power.
Is it pure power?
Do you know how much power costs today? At 180, 200 bucks a kilo.
Well, we use 14 powers to a pie.
It's got to be a kilo there, and we're getting it for free.
We get to meet our visitors, which we all enjoy, because there's only about 43 people living in our community. We all love it here.
Do you slice your power or do you mince it?
I mince it.
Do you add garlic?
No.
No? No. You're not going to tell me the recipe, are you?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I was born in Bluff. I know where my roots are, but we choose to live on the Chatham Islands.
I've just come here from New Zealand, and I've only been here for nearly a year. Oh, I love it. And I'm proud to be a Congolorian now, I suppose. I never knew about this island. I've never been taught about it or nothing. For me, it's a big eye-opener. Yeah, we're little people in the middle of the sea. We're surrounded by sea. We're a little power on a rock.
Occasionally you'll find like